What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be checking out all the new features and changes coming to iOS 14 on the iPhone. If you didn't know already, Apple held their Worldwide Developers Conference keynote presentation today, where they showcased all of the latest software updates coming to the iPhone, the iPad, and Mac later this year. And they also released the first developer beta previews as well, which I have installed on my iPhone. If you guys are interested in installing the iOS 14 update early on your own iPhone as well, Apple should have a public beta available sometime next month so that everyone can give iOS 14 a try. And when that beta program goes live, I'll update the link in the video description so you can check it out for yourself. And just so you guys know, the full release of iOS 14 that will hit everyone's iPhones should be coming sometime in the fall, usually September or October. And iOS 14 is going to be supported on every iPhone from the iPhone 6S and beyond. So basically any iPhone released since 2015, and that's really awesome. Apple obviously is still supporting those older iPhones with the latest software updates. With iOS 14, Apple is introducing a ton of new things. The biggest changes really have to do with the new home screen setup with widgets and a bunch more interesting stuff, and I'm gonna go over all of that in this video. So enough talking, let's go ahead and jump right into it and see what iOS 14 has to offer. So the first big change coming to the home screen is what Apple calls the app library, which is sort of a launcher style page designed to organize and group all of the apps installed on your phone without having to have a bunch of pages to scroll through. By default, the app library is the very last page of your home screen, and you can see all of your apps grouped by category, as well as two groups at the top for suggestions and recently added apps. But if you have multiple pages of apps, you can now hide the pages you don't want, and instead just utilize the app library to keep things more simple and organized. To do this, in the Edit Home Screen mode, you just need to tap on the page dots towards the bottom, and from here you can hide the pages of apps you don't want or don't use as often, and simply have the app library as your main page of additional apps. You still need to have a primary home screen of apps. You can't just have the app library, but you can at least get rid of the additional pages and pages of apps you may have and combine it down to one. Also, in settings, you can set it up so that each new app you download only gets added to the app library page rather than on the home screen page, which is nice. And you can enable or disable notification badges in the app library as well. The app library also has a search and list function that allows you to easily find any app you need that's installed. Now, as far as I can tell here, you can't edit the app library groupings or categories, or even the folder names, at least not yet. So everything you see is the default layout that's auto-generated. And the apps are displayed with the most frequently used apps first. So again, no way yet to reorganize really anything with the app library. It all seems to be fluid and based on your app usage while also being auto-generated. The next big change is widgets. With the widgets, Apple not only redesigned a whole bunch of stuff, but you can now add widgets directly to the home screen. Swiping over to the Today view, you can see right away that a lot of the default widgets like weather and calendar have been redesigned. They now come in different sizes with different views, and there's a lot more flexibility to customize the setup here, which is great. But the widgets are no longer limited to just being on this page. If you want, you can add full-sized widgets directly to the home screen by either dragging and dropping existing widgets from Today view, or by searching and adding widgets by tapping the plus button in the Edit Home Screen mode. Widgets can be added to any app page, so you can have a few on the first page, a few more on the second page, and so on if you want. And each widget may have a different size or different view you can utilize. So you can have a widget take up just a small space on the home screen page, or take up a whole bunch of room if it's particularly important to you. The one widget Apple really highlighted is their Smart Stack widget. And if you have this on your home screen, you can basically just swipe through all of the apps that have widgets and quickly glance at just about everything. And the Smart Stack can also automatically display certain widgets at a certain time of day. So news in the morning, the calendar later in the day, and your activity rings in the evening, for example. There's definitely a lot of potential here in showing way more information right on the home screen, and tons of additional customization options now as well. Another nice new feature coming to iOS 14 is picture-in-picture. Obviously with this, you can continue to watch a movie or video uninterrupted while doing other things on your iPhone. So for example, if you're watching something on Apple TV, swiping up to go home will now just create a second window for the video with the audio still playing, and you're free to use all the other apps and things on your phone. You can resize the window, you can move it around on the screen, and you also still have playback controls as well. And you can of course close out of the window completely if you're done watching, or simply go back to watching your content in full screen. And if you want to hide the window temporarily, still have the audio playing, but just see the rest of your iPhone for a moment, you can swipe the window away to the left or to the right. Like I said, the video is still playing, the audio is going in the background, but it's just hidden out of view with that little icon on the side. And to bring it back, you just have to swipe the window back into view. So picture-in-picture mode on the iPhone, definitely a pretty nice little feature there. One feature I know a lot of people will like in iOS 14 is the ability to now set third-party email and browser apps as the default option. So if you've abandoned Apple's Mail and Safari apps, you can now set up Gmail, Chrome, or other mail and browser apps that you use from the App Store as the default system-wide option. And you can completely delete the Mail app and Safari as well. I know a ton of people who prefer those other apps, so I think this is a welcome change for sure. Siri was also updated in iOS 14, both in her capabilities and her looks. Now, when you launch Siri, you'll see only the Siri icon at the bottom of the screen, rather than a whole Siri page that covers up whatever you were looking at. And I actually think this is a welcome change as well, and really adds a lot to the Siri experience. Asking Siri about the weather, for example, simply just brings up a widget-like pop-up. And if you're reading something and need Siri's help, like adding a reminder, making a note, or whatever else, you can do that while still referencing the app or webpage you need. However, at least right now, when Siri is enabled, you can't tap or scroll on the page you're looking at. So in a way, Siri is still the main thing on the screen, but at least you can see what's going on behind it. Siri is also a bit smarter now with answers to more complicated questions that come from a large database of websites, so you should be able to get more actual answers right away rather than Siri simply suggesting you search the web. In addition, you can use Siri to record and send voice messages in iMessage easily, and Siri also now has a more comprehensive language translating ability that's paired with a brand new dedicated Translate app. The new Translate app can be utilized for simple words and sentences, as well as two-person conversations in 2 different languages. And all this is done in the app, which can be used offline, and that's really awesome. Right now, the Translate app supports 11 different languages, and in conversation mode, the languages are automatically detected when each person speaks, with the sentences organized so that everyone can keep track of the conversation. Now, I don't really know any other languages, I barely know English, so I can't exactly say how accurate these translations are, but I think just having this app is great, and the conversation feature really does add a lot. The Messages app also sees some nice new updates with iOS 14 to help keep everything organized. First off, if you have someone you maybe regularly contact or just want to have the conversation always towards the top, you can pin that person, which adds a little bubble here for easy access. You can pin a group chat as well, and the pins will show the person's initials or their memojis if they have one set up. And with group chats, Apple has added some enhancements here as well. You can now have threaded replies where people can respond to one message in particular, which I think is a great way to keep the conversation organized and ensure people are responding to the right stuff. And you can now also message just a specific person or persons in a group chat with mentions. By simply typing out their name before the message, they'll be notified that the message is directed towards them. And again, that's a great way to keep the conversation organized as well, and to keep unnecessary notifications to a minimum. And by the way, there's a bunch of new Memoji customization options as well, so if you're into that, you should see plenty of more ways to create the perfect Memoji for you. One small change you'll notice is with incoming phone calls, both from the iPhone and FaceTime apps and third-party apps. Rather than the phone call notification taking up the whole screen, you'll now just see a notification style pop-up across the top. So that's way less intrusive and kind of nice if you want to just finish something up for a second before answering the phone. Apple Maps has also received a ton of updates in iOS 14. You'll find dedicated dedicated guides for popular places, dedicated cycling directions, routes, and information in certain cities, and EV routing for pinpointing charging stations along your route. And speaking of cars, starting with the new BMW 5 Series, you can now also use your iPhone as a car key, which is kind of interesting, though like I said, that feature is only launching with one new car for right now. The Home app adds some new capabilities, including automation for any smart lights you may have connected. You can now have the lights in your home change throughout the day, maybe be a little brighter in the afternoon or more dim with a yellow tint at night to wind down at the end of the day. And some other third-party accessories like cameras and doorbells that are HomeKit enabled can be adjusted to include activity zones. And those are areas the camera sees that you want to ignore rather than catching activity like on a busy street, and facial recognition for cameras and doorbells so you know who might be visiting you. Safari sees just a couple of new features in iOS 14 with website translations and some increased privacy, which also includes letting you know when your password might not be too secure. And speaking of privacy, now if an app is using the camera or microphone, you'll get a small indicator light in the status bar to let you know. This is pretty interesting. In the camera app, obviously the camera and mic are in use and you can see that, but if there's an app that you didn't know is using the camera or mic, you'll now see that indicator light. Not that any secret recording was going on necessarily, but it's certainly more obvious now when an app is utilizing the camera and mic. A handful of other apps have seen some additional changes and UI upgrades as well, including weather, notes, reminders, game center, and more, though nothing too exciting with any of those, just some minor tweaks, adjustments, and small feature additions. One other thing I'm actually really excited about with iOS 14 is what Apple calls app clips. These aren't live right now, but this is a new feature where instead of downloading an entire app when you come across, say, a parking meter or scooter or restaurant or something, you can get just the essential parts of an app so you can complete whatever task you need to do. App clips will pop up in Messages, Safari, and Maps, can be launched via NFC, and can also be utilized with a unique QR code that Apple has designed. So you'll probably see them pop up all the time. And app clips pair with Apple Pay and sign in with Apple, so you don't have to create new accounts or add payment methods. The app clips really let you do whatever it is you need to do in a matter of seconds without having to jump through a bunch of hoops. And this is great. I always found it super inconvenient to go out of my way to download and install an entire new app, create an account, set up payment methods, and more just to use something one time. Finally, let's talk AirPods. Now, we didn't see any new AirPods launched, but Apple explained that AirPods received a couple of new features. The first is automatic switching between devices. Now, when you're watching something on your iPhone and move to your iPad, for example, AirPods will automatically connect to the new device and allow you to continue watching uninterrupted. You can also connect two sets of AirPods to an Apple TV 4K so you can listen with friends, and there are also some additional AirPod sound adjustments you can make in the accessibility options to help amplify sounds that you have trouble hearing. Finally, with AirPods Pro, you'll now be able to have a theater-like listening experience with this new sort of surround sound setup that Apple calls spatial sound. Again, I haven't yet been able to try this, but it certainly is something that seems interesting, and I'm a little skeptical about getting surround sound from my AirPods Pro, but I guess we'll wait and see how it ends up working. So there you go, those are most of the big changes coming to iOS 14. There's a ton of stuff I probably missed, lots of little tweaks and things. This is actually a pretty decent update compared to the last few iOS updates we've had, so that's great to see. And I'm looking forward to having this update on my iPhone and learning a little bit more about what iOS 14 has in store. If you guys have any questions about iOS 14, or maybe you want to fill me in on any updates or changes you came across, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.